All right, here's another one with fractions. This one's a little nicer because look, I have 1 plus secant and 1 minus secant. So if I take this one times 1 minus the secant of x over 1 minus the secant of x, and then if I take this one times 1 plus the secant of x and 1 plus the secant of x. I'm just multiplying each one times the other one, okay? So what that gives me on top here is the cosecant of x minus the cosecant of x times the secant of x. And then this one over here is going to give me the cosecant of x plus the cosecant of x times the secant of x. Each of these is going to be over the same thing. I'm going to have 1 minus the secant squared of x. And again, what I'm doing is I'm foiling this. I do first, outer, inner, last. My outer and my inner, because it's the sum and difference pattern, add to 0, and I have 1 minus secant squared. Now, 1 minus secant squared, there's that Pythagorean identity again. 1 minus secant squared. Oh, look at that. It's secant squared minus 1. So what are we going to do? Okay. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add these two fractions together and I'm going to clean up the top. So I have secant, cosecant plus cosecant. So I have 2 cosecant of x. Those add out. And then what I'm going to do is this is going to be the same, but I'm going to write a negative secant squared of x plus 1, and I'm going to change their order. So if I factor out a negative, and I have the secant squared of x minus 1, now this matches my identity. Okay, so I can replace that with the tangent squared. So I have 2 times the cosecant of x over a negative tangent squared of x. And now what do? Well, when it's simplified, when it's cleaned up, if you can get rid of fractions, you get rid of fractions, okay? So this is technically a 1 over tangent squared, and 1 over tangent squared is equal to a cotangent squared. So this is going to be a negative 2 times a cosecant of x times a cotangent squared of x. Now, the only thing that I would question and the only thing that you should look for is, does anything cancel? Okay. This is equal to 1 over sine of x, and cotangent squared is equal to the cosine squared of x over the sine squared of x. And so because all of my sine squares are on the bottom, nothing's going to cancel, and this is your final answer. Now, you may be asking, how do I know when to stop? How do I know where to go? What do I know? Again, in section 5.1, it's difficult to know where you're going and when to stop. Feel free. You can look in the back of the book at the answer to see where you're supposed to be going if you need to. Don't feel guilty for looking at the answer. You're going to have work to get to your answer. And I'm not going to give you the worked out solutions for 5.1. And it's not to punish you, and it's not to make things difficult. It's because there's more than one way to do these problems, and I want you to think for yourself. If you are thinking the same way that the author is thinking, you're going to be doing yourself a disservice. And so I want you to think for yourself. When you get stuck and you are so far on a problem and you're not sure where to go, you're not sure what you need to do next, take a picture of your problem, send it to me. All right? I got this far, I'm stuck. What do I do? Where do I go? Okay?